And welcome to the Midday Show. I'm Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. Plethora of stuff today. A plethora of
Very nice.
Kind of a smorgasbord, if you will. We're just going to jump around, hit some different topics.
Are we supposed to throw a word in every sentence that we don't use very often?
We can try. It'd be very, very peculiar.
Yeah, peculiar is not as. I have a friend who, when
and the game's over,
he is so smart that like every third sentence, I'm like, I don't know what that word means.
Yeah.
And then he's like, then he gets all frustrated. He takes a couple seconds to try to dumb it down for me.
You're right.
But he's one of these so that he's like, and I'm like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
And then he tells me. So yes, but I like it. I like you starting out with plethora and smorgasbord.
Yeah, those were good. I think too, it might be time to retire the fall background. We're getting there. I've had a couple of texts about snow, different things. Might be time to move on.
Don't you have like a winter background?
I'll find one. Yeah.
No. Yours is just white.
Yeah, mine. This is certainly the.
I know. I told you this. I have decorations for you.
Yeah.
And then they're not. I have to get them ready, but they're there. They're at my house. They showed up in the mail, and I think like maybe next week we're gonna come in and I'm gonna hang them up, but I'm gonna cover them. So you're not going to know, and then I'll unveil them during the show, and it'll be cool. And you will. It's lots of things that are your favorites.
We may have different definitions of cool. That's what I'm worried about mostly. Before there's a couple of things like I have some stuff here that I wanted to talk about today. Is there anything that you specifically wanted to talk about today?
No, but I noticed I got these things on my screen, and yesterday they were bothering me, but I didn't want to like put my thumb and like scrape them off, but today I'm not doing it for an hour.
How often do you like clean your laptop? When's the last time you've actually wiped down your laptop? Never. It's okay to say never.
I've never. They have special wipes you have to buy, right?
Well, I mean, it helps, but you don't need to. Like if you want, like you can get just like a wipe, like a rag, and just softly. Like you don't have to have this.
Like a damp rag doesn't. I thought that was dangerous.
A damp rag? Well, like you don't want to like drench it out over top of it, but like, you know.
No, I've never. I scrape with my. You know how I clean the keyboard?
Yeah,
like this. And then it's.
So your laptop must just be disgusting.
Oh, it's not disgusting. You see it.
There's probably just like micro stuff crawling around.
There's micro stuff crawling around everywhere.
Yeah, but your laptop must be just like a breeding ground of just disaster.
You know what it is? It's a breeding ground of creativity, is what it is.
Is that what
That's what it is. All the magic happens right here.
I thought it would be interesting. We didn't really get to talk before the show, but have you heard about the Great Recession? Or I'm sorry, not the Great Recession, the Great Resignation and people quitting their jobs?
Someone mentioned it.
Okay.
I have heard of it. I haven't had a discussion about it other than that I heard someone mention it.
So someone mentioned it to me a couple of days ago. And then at a meeting we had yesterday, we have someone that's working on a piece, I think, to try to localize kind of the Great Resignation. And we're going to write something up here at NorthcentralPa.com. Be sure to go there for all your local news. But as I started going through it, they hit record highs in July. They are announcing, I believe they announced yesterday that they hit record highs in September again. I want to say it's 4.4 million. 4.4 million Americans quit their jobs in September. Record. Before, I think people thought this wouldn't last. Like, I think people thought people not working and they're getting all this free money and then eventually, and I don't think it's like that. I think it's something completely different.
I don't think it's completely different.
Okay.
I don't think it's as simple as people are making it out to be.
Okay.
But I think that the one thing that I have taken from this is when you just hand out money. And I think as we look back through, maybe it's unfair for us to say because of where we live in a rural area that's more I would say isolated, but
right.
But we like there have been jobs here everywhere.
It's been crazy
everywhere, and around the country they're giving stimulus money to people because they lost their jobs, they couldn't find work, and we can't relate to that.
Sure.
But what I have found is that when you give people money, they blow it. They don't save it. It doesn't make their life better. And, if somebody goes to work and gets a paycheck at the end of the week for $800 and you just walk up and you give them $800, they don't say, oh, I'll save this for a rainy day. Oh, I'll do this. There's a lot of them that just say, well, then I don't have to go to work this week.
Okay.
And that has really been the overriding result of this, I've always heard these stats about people who are 2 paychecks away from being broke, or, that live paycheck to paycheck.
Sure.
And I understand that there's a percentage of that that's socioeconomic. I also understand that there's a percentage of that of people that just blow. If you give them $20, they've blown it before they got home.
Sure.
And this has really magnified that for me.
But this is the part of this that's going to shift the way people are going to have to think about it. This is 4.4 million Americans that I think most people aren't in the discussion of what you just described. So you have 4.4 million Americans quitting their jobs, and maybe half of them fall into what you described, but the other half, that is not the case.
So you're saying these are like real career jobs?
These are like real career jobs.
Okay.
The thing I read, let me find it because I want to be exactly right on the percentage. So the resignation rates right now in the month of September, so that's the most recent data that they've announced, is from September. So when I say now, I'm referring to that. The resignation rates were highest among mid-career level aged employees between the ages of 30 and 45. The greatest increase was 20%, and that fell between the ages of 35 and 40. So I'm not saying that there aren't minimum wage workers at that age level. I'm just saying that I think for most people, that is the scenario. You have people that are bad at saving or lazy or just can't get their life together. They fall into a stimulus, they quit their job, and they go, this is going to last me 4 months and I'll get another job 4 months from now. And what I'm saying is, I don't think that is the accurate picture of what is happening.
I get what you're saying.
I think there's a whole.
Do you want my theory on that?
I would love to. Yeah.
Do you want to give yours first, or do you want mine?
So I don't have a theory. My theory is that, and I don't even know if I agree with my theory. My theory is that the pandemic.
You have a self-esteem problem.
I do.
When you don't even agree with your own theory.
Because I don't have there's no number to back up what I'm about to say. I really believe that people my age looked out at the world and said, do I really want to be doing X? And I think the pandemic exaggerated that. It really made them say to themselves, I've been dying to do this. I'm going to try. I've been waiting to go here. I've been waiting to open this. And they're just not waiting. And part of that is quitting maybe secure, safe jobs. It might be quitting jobs where they feel undervalued. It might be, who knows the reason they're actually quitting. But I do believe the internal struggle is exasperated by the idea of a pandemic, when it's who knows where we're going to be next year. So let's do this. Let's finally do the thing we've been waiting to do.
Well, I think my version of what the pandemic did was it showed people that the world doesn't have to operate the way we always thought it operated. And, from everyone is you get up, you go to the office, you do your job. And how many people have found out that, hey, I don't need to go to the office to do my job. I actually do it better at home because I don't have to spend all the time commuting. Now, there are still some people who need an office, who need to get out of their house. So, but there's a lot more people and in a lot more industries that they found out they could function just as well at home as they do in the office. And nobody would have believed it to the magnitude that it was before the pandemic. So now you take a person that says, I was brought up by parents who are you've got to get a 9-to-5 job and you've got to go to work every day. And now they're no, I don't.
Yeah. So one of the things, I was actually just having a discussion about this with somebody who works for a larger corporation, and they were talking about their building leases. So they have multiple buildings that house hundreds of people and employees, and their leases are 10-year leases. And so they have somewhere between 6 and 7 years left on these buildings
that are
and
empty.
so that are empty. And so they are having meetings, and the younger, kind of the lower level, younger aspect of the company is saying like, there's no reason for us to come back. And the higher ups that packaged these deals and they sign these leases, and they're kind of being like, there kind of is, we don't know what else to do with this building for 7 years. So like, you better come in at least 2 days a week. You better come in at least 3 days a week. They're trying to meet it halfway, but they're trying to push selling points that to lower level or younger people just doesn't add up. And then they're looking at it saying like, well, then I'm out. Like I'm not coming in to do a job where you can't give me a reason why I have to come in, because the reason is the bottom line. The reason is that as a CEO or whatever, if you can't justify these 10-year leases in these buildings, you could lose your job. It was a bad deal. So it is, I think a lot of this are people ages 30 to 40, and they're saying like, I'm not going back. Like, and that could be, I'm not going back to a job I hate. It could be, I'm not going back into an office when I don't need to. Like, I'm enjoying my lifestyle and like I'm getting done what I need to get done. But I think there's this really strong misconception that it's just people blowing their money. And I don't think that is like the 70, 80, 90%
you might be right.
These people.
I think part of it too, as we've talked about before, is that the bigwigs aren't retiring.
No.
So you get a 35, not 30, 30 is too young, 35, 40, 45-year-old person.
And they've never moved up.
And they don't have authority. They're not in management. They're not in administration. So they're like, I have no responsibility here. And you've got people who, and I get it, people are living longer, they're healthier. And if you've established it that you're at the company or you're wherever, and you're 70 years old and you don't really have to do that much anymore, but have your corner office and make your money, why would you stop doing it?
Yeah.
So, but because of that, you have the generation below you who's like, I can leave here tomorrow.
Right.
So I think there are lots of branches to this. One of them is, I think there's a condemnation on management. And I think the places where the management has treated the people well and has, promoted from within, and places like that have created that culture and that environment, I think they'll do fine. But the places where the boss is playing golf 4 afternoons a week and he's never there and he's
sure.
I mean, those places, the people, they can feel their value. And then there's like, well, there's no real value to me. I can go across the street and they'll value me more tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that, because the other, they didn't word it like this, but I forget the exact, because they're much smarter than me, and they used like actual economic terms
why?
to describe, because they're smarter than me.
You know why they're smarter than you?
Go ahead.
Because we're total idiots.
Yeah, you too.
Don't forget that.
How could I forget? The other aspect of it is, I've always it's that beach mentality. So like, if you ever go to the beach in the summer, like you can go to a restaurant one day and they may have a completely different staff a week later, because there's that mentality at the beach. Like, if I don't feel like showing up to work this day, if they want to fire me, go for it. I'll just go work for that restaurant down the street. And there is like, that mentality has kind of moved, I think, way further up the workforce than what anybody expected. I think for most people, they thought that would be like a entry level, like no degree type of environment, and it would never exceed that. But I think it has. Like, I think it's jumped into like the above entry level, several degrees, where people are looking around and just being like, you know what? I don't have to take this. I will just go to the next business that values me if I want to go on this trip for 2 weeks and you don't want to give me the time off.
You know what? I was just, as we're thinking out loud, as you were just talking, I do think there's the level of people who have just like, well, they gave me my paycheck for the week. Why do I have to go to work? But as you're talking about the career people, maybe those people have saved. Because I know, like in real estate, I've talked to clients, I've shown houses to clients, and especially when they're new and you're just like, well, so what do you do? And I've had people who are basically in between jobs. And they're like, I used to do this,
right,
but I quit that because whatever. And now I'm looking, I might either do this, or I might move here. And maybe those people socked the money away that they were getting. And now they know, and they had a big enough career that they had some money saved anyway.
Sure.
But they've given themselves a buffer that, like, you know what? I can take, instead of like, I quit this job on Friday, I start this job on Monday.
Yeah.
They're like, I'll quit this job and I'm going to look at a couple options, and maybe in 2 or 3 months, I need to have picked something.
No, yeah, it's a good point. This kind of goes along with what you're saying. I think people undervalue, and don't get me wrong, people blow money. I completely agree with what you started this conversation with. Like, there are people that 100% blow money. I am one of them. There are also people that I think this younger generation values saving money way more than what they realize. I have a friend who just charted her whole vacation across America. They basically traveled the entire year, and every weekend they would like go to a different state, and then they would like film it. They would, just kind of post it all on social media. And at one point I just was kind of like, how are you, like, what's going? And they're like, for 3 years, like we saved up, like we charted the course. We figured out how much we would need.
Oh dear God.
Every week.
That's not worth it.
And
that is not worth it.
But anyway, the point I'm making though, is like, think about, like, to me, I don't know about you, when the idea of like, when I was 22, 23, 24, saving up enough so that when I was 25, just not doing anything, I was trying to save up enough for the weekend. Right. So the point I'm making is, I do think you have a younger generation who, I'm not even saying that like they know better. I'm just simply saying, like, they certainly have a better understanding of, like, if I want X, this is what it costs.
I don't know about that.
You don't think so?
I'm not. Maybe.
Really?
I don't know. More like the younger generation, because my kids are teenagers, so I'm basing on teenagers.
But I think Jimmy knows. Like, for example, when I was Jimmy's age, I had no idea what a fight on HBO cost. None. Because
you never ordered any fights on HBO.
But you're missing my point. The point is, like, if I went to a buddy's house and they were like, hey, they're gonna watch the boxing match, whatever, I had no idea that was like X amount of dollars. Jimmy probably knows.
You know why he knows?
What the fight
because
costs.
He's the one who orders it. Because we order it through Xbox, and then he's like, and then he walks in and says, "Dad, where's your credit card?"
Yes.
And I say, "How much is it?" Yes. And he goes back and looks at the screen.
Correct.
But
the point is, though, if you said to Jimmy, how much does a pay-per-view fight cost? Jimmy has like a conceptual understanding.
I get what you're saying.
I had no idea what the conceptual understanding of what, and same thing with like a cross-country trip. Like when I was 22, I had no idea what like a cross-country trip, like now there's 22, 23, 24-year-olds that they're like, if I save this much amount, like the tangible value of something is so much more like publicly known for younger people now than what it was when you or I grew up.
All right, I have a question for you, and I'm glad we went to this because I thought of this the other day, and I was like, I should ask Jeff this on the Midday show. A buddy of mine, when he was getting married, and sometimes they sit down with the priest or the minister or whatever. There should be classes on this.
Okay.
You should have to have an intelligent class to help you through this because kids walking into marriage have no idea what they're getting into.
Okay.
This was a question. College buddy was getting married.
Okay.
And him and his fiance, bride-to-be, were given this.
That was her name?
Her name was bride-to-be.
Yes.
Were given this written test. Okay. And you had to answer, and then they were going to come back and they were going to compare answers. Okay. One of the questions was, and this I'm asking you because you are madly in love.
Yes.
How much money could you spend on yourself without feeling guilty, without feeling like you need to clear it with your significant other first? Now, you're still single, but if you're married, how much money do you think you could blow on yourself without asking her first?
I want to answer this the way you want me to. I don't know if there's a dollar value. I would imagine in my head, it would be like 20 to 25% of what I brought in that month. Like, depending on what I brought in that month, what percentage? See, I knew I was going to ruin that for you.
You're going to make it way harder than.
But to me, that's like the value of it. like whether or not I would want to clear it with her.
So is like $50? Is it $100? Is it?
Well, I don't know. Here's the point I'm making. If her and I, like, we clearly have a lifestyle where it's very understood, like, these are the things that we do week to week. This is what we're capable of affording. Anything that would throw that out of whack is something that I would want to get cleared. Anything below that, like if I get a pair of sneakers, but it doesn't throw off our weekly procedure, I'm not getting it cleared. Like, I don't feel the need to get it cleared. If I buy a pair of sneakers and all of a sudden it's like, hey, for this week, like, we're going to be short, or then
so as long as the check clears, you're good.
I think so. I think that's my line. You disagree? Really? You disagree?
I mean, it's just how you're wired. My buddy said, and they were right out of college. Like, literally, I'll talk about this because there's something on eBay that I want to buy for myself. Okay. And it's stupid.
Okay.
And it's like $35.
Okay.
And I'm looking at it like, why am I getting this? Because once I get it, it looks cool online. I'm going to look at it's cool. I'm going to put it on a shelf. And it has no practical value in it. But it's $35. And I've been looking at it for like 3 days.
Sure.
So when they asked my buddy this, and he was 23, like he was young, I think his answer was something like $20 or $25.
Oh, that's horrific.
She said $1,000.
I was going to say, you can't go through life. If you had to clear everything with your significant other at $20 or $25, I mean, check me out. Like, I'm good. Like, I don't want that life.
So for you could walk home with an electric guitar for $500 and not have to clear it with it. And just be like, here, honey, look what I got. She's like, you what?
So I've been in different relationships. I will say, in the relationship that I am in now, I am way more nervous to ask about time than I am about money. And what I mean by that is, like, I would not be afraid about a big expenditure. I would be way more nervous about saying, like, hey, I'd like to go to
I'm going away for a week.
I'd like to go to X with my buddies for 4 days. That is way more of a price cost than the actual expenditure itself.
I mean, I can remember, and this is just the way I'm wired. Like, when I go look at pick up a CD, you remember CDs? Had music on them?
I remember CDs.
And I would sit there and be like, do I really want? I mean, yeah, it's cool, but it's $12.99. Do I really, really want it?
Because maybe this is why, like, the relationship works, is because I respect that. I don't mind it as much that I'm more nervous about asking for time, because I value time more. So I respect the fact that that's harder for me to ask for than money. Does that make sense?
I guess. So she walks home with a fur coat that costs $750.
Mm-hmm.
Just bought it. You don't bet an eye.
You're gonna, like, I think you know me well enough, though. Like, I don't, like, it doesn't.
Okay.
That aspect of it just doesn't. Again, under the pretenses that it's not affecting, like, the week to week, month to month aspect of how, like, my life is much simpler than most. Like, as long as I can drive and coach and come home and, like, have, like, a bag of chips, I'm good. So, like, my week to week expense and what I view as, like, valuable is very different. But as long as that lifestyle isn't shifted by the purchase they make, it really, like, knock yourself. Like, I don't know, like, if a fur coat for $750 makes you happy, like, all right, because I'm sure, I have no doubt, there's something I want to buy for $750 that they think, like, that's pointless, but it's going to make me happy.
I can't tell you the last thing I've bought for $750.
For $750?
Oh my gosh.
Crypto.
Not yet, but I should.
It's a good question. There was another one too. This is like a trend on social media. They're asking guys how much it would take for them to cheat on their girlfriend, and vice versa. How much for the girlfriend? So they'll start and they'll say like $100, and they'll be no, and they'll say 1,000, and they'll say no. And then they get up to like 10,000, 25, 50, and all of a sudden, like, they start looking over at the other significant other, basically kind of being like, what's our
the significant is looking back and, like, for 50, you better.
That's
like, what are you doing?
Well, that's the point, because the one guy was hilarious.
But they're all lying.
Well, I think they're all lying. The one guy was hilarious because he looks and he's like, honey, like, it's for us. Like, it's right. it's a windfall.
It's like indecent proposal.
Kind of.
Did you ever see that?
No.
Oh, it was Woody Harrelson and Demi Moore, I think.
Okay.
And Robert Redford offered. Woody Harrelson and Demi Moore were a young married couple.
Okay.
And Robert Redford offered $1 million, I think.
To like sleep with his
to
wife.
sleep with his wife.
Interesting.
And the fictional part of the story was they were all broken up about it.
Okay.
Whereas in reality, people were like, if the check clears, hey, knock yourself out. It's $1 million.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get that's a fun question, but everyone's lying. I think what's an interesting, I just the way people are wired, because everybody that's in a relationship goes through this. How much would you be willing to spend on yourself without feeling bad or without calling home or without checking? Now, I have a buddy. I say buddy, a guy I know. He has done ridiculously well in the professional investment world. He worked for this huge company and he's made a lot of money. And I remember he told us a story when he bought a Jeep, like your Jeep.
Yeah.
And he was mid-30s and he said, I've never really bought my own car. Like I had a car in college that my parents had gave me. It was this old beater. And then I got married. And then we always bought a car together. And we had the family car and the station wagon and the minivan and all.
Sure.
And he's like, whatever, buku bucks with all kinds of commas in his bank account. He's like, I've never even bought my own car.
Yeah.
And he just on the way home, he shows up and he shows up with a Jeep. Of all things, he didn't get a Lamborghini, his wife was just like, "You're an idiot."
That's why.
But he's like all proud of himself. Look, I bought myself a Jeep.
It's exciting. I think that's why it's different for everybody, though. I think that's why there has to be a percentage.
It depends how much money you make. Correct. To him, a Jeep was a drop in the bucket. To the rest of us, we have to do 3 hours worth of a financing meeting to get our Jeep. But yes,
so I grew up in a household where one parent was in charge of all the finances. Was that your household or no?
Yes.
Okay.
But ours was kind of because my dad just didn't want to deal with it.
Sure.
And my mom is the only one who ever had a dime in her wallet. Okay. And maybe my dad did that just so he could be like, nope, you can't get it. But
yeah, because that's an interesting dynamic too. Like I've always been blown away at households where one person, I don't want to say like blindly, because you're married to the person, like you clearly trust the person, but that aspect of just like blindly just going along with whatever the other person decides financially, that has always I've never really been able to grasp that.
And I haven't either, but because you like numbers.
Yes.
And because it interests you. If you're a person who's like we'll change it to something totally different. If you could care less about yard work and landscaping, and the other person loves it, it's a hobby. You're like, whatever you want to do. If you want to plant these flowers, if you want to do this, if you want to mulch this, this year we're going to get red mulch, and this year we're going to get brown mulch. Like you're going to do it. So whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And I think it's that way. Now my dad's very good with numbers. He just didn't care about dealing with it. He had other hobbies that he wanted to do, and my mom was very anal about it, and she was wired that way. So that's the way they did it.
Yeah.
But I always thought I don't know why I was thinking of that yesterday. I heard something on the radio or something. And I thought about it because I think my buddy at the time said like $20 or $25, and his wife said $1,000, and it was now his wife also came from money, so that also was a very different. And my buddy's family was very, very middle class.
So Tastes Like Good said, where the heck did Mark shop for new CDs that were only $12.99 back in the day? I'm pretty sure everything at the wall was $18.99. What was like the most you ever paid for a CD?
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I remember before it was back when it was tapes and records, when they would have that big sticker on it and it would be like $7.99.
Oh,
and that was like
ever remember that.
That was like a deal, but not for CDs. He's right, because when CDs came out, they were always more. But then when CDs disappeared, I don't ever remember paying $18.99 for a CD.
Oh, I do. I remember getting the Blink-182 CD for like almost $20. And then I remember there was a time where I think like the Britney Spears album at one point was like 21 or 22. Like it was, there was a streak there like late 90s where it was, it was expensive.
Well, see, and that makes total sense because in the late 90s, I was not buying any music because I was still listening to all the stuff from the 80s because I hated the 90s.
So it was already out of
It took me till like the 2000 teens to like the 90s. But now I do. The 90s has some really good stuff.
Do you think you'll ever get to a point where you like the 2000s, like as time goes on? No, you don't think you'll come along?
Because I think one of the things that I've learned to appreciate is the rock and roll aspect of some of the chicks of the 90s. Whether it's like, what was her name? Who did Jagged Little Pill?
Alanis Morissette.
Alanis Morissette. Britney, Christina Aguilera. Like, they were a little more rock and roll-ish than we were given credit for because they weren't Motley Crue and they weren't Guns N' Roses. Mm-hmm. So they were just a little different. But, even into like Pink and, it was just different. Yeah. But I hated grunge. Now I appreciate grunge more than I did because I like grunge a hell of a lot more and I like the stuff that's out now.
Interesting.
But I hated grunge because it kind of killed my decade.
Okay. It certainly did.
So I took it personally. Like it took me.
The worst part is it killed your decade and then it peaced out. That was the worst.
Yeah, and then it left.
Yeah, and then left.
It was like 15 years later before I really appreciated the fact that "Smells Like Teen Spirit" is a brilliant song.
Yeah.
But when it first came out, it's like, this is the dumbest song ever. This song's stupid. So anyway.
Let's talk about, let's end the show because you do have a meeting you have to go to. Let's end the show with the Ben Simmons stuff, but we're not going to talk about the basketball side of it. We're going to talk about mental health versus, I guess, your feelings. I don't know how else to shape it.
This is a neat topic. This is us taking a normal topic and looking at it from the other view.
Ben Simmons' agent came out. For those of you, the 10-second synopsis, Ben Simmons is supposed to be playing basketball for the Philadelphia 76ers. He has refused to. He is claiming mental health. It is up for debate whether or not he is doing this just so he can keep his money or if he actually is suffering from mental health. That's the best 10-second synopsis.
Let me give 10 more seconds. He's got like $150 million contract. He is a super high player with a highly paid player with this profile of brilliance. And last year in the playoffs, he absolutely stunk. Or at least he stunk when the brightest lights were on. And all of a sudden, for the first time in his life, he went from being this, you can do no wrong, to, oh, he did a lot wrong, and maybe the Sixers should just get rid of him. So he's had summer from that aspect, as that's where he's at in life.
Yes. So his agent came out recently and said, this is a direct quote from him, "I truly believe the fines, the targeting, the negative publicity shined on the issue. That's very unnecessary, and it has furthered the mental health issues for Ben. Either you help Ben or come out and say he's lying. Which one is it?" And so we brought up the idea of how do you talk about mental health? Because it is very difficult to talk about mental health in a way where you are not attacking people who are claiming mental health issues. It's hard. It's hard to do it right now. So how do you talk about this issue where you can talk about mental health, but at the same time, you can describe the difference between your mental health and your feelings? Because the things that Ben Simmons' agent talks about, to me, those sound more like feelings. That's not he's not being verbally abused by the organization. He's not being held to any standard that is not within his contracts of what he is expected to do. And so to me, this sounds like an issue of his feelings, not his mental health. But on the same time, maybe he is struggling with his mental health, and he has been struggling with his mental health, and just now he is coming to grips with it. I don't know, but I do know I disagree with his agent.
I agree. I agree with you that I disagree. This is part, like the name that comes to mind is Spencer Rattler, who's he was the starting quarterback for Oklahoma. And preseason, he was one of the Heisman front runners, and he got benched halfway through the season. So there's a difference between being depressed, who is, of course, if you are this guy who might win the Heisman, he's thinking about all this money he's going to make in the NFL because he's going to be a first-round draft pick. And now you get benched and the other guy does really well and the team's playing better. Now you're like, that would be depressing. But that doesn't mean you have depression. They are different. When your dog dies, you're depressed, but you don't have depression. And there's sadness is not a mental health issue. And that is the aspect here that all of a sudden they're claiming this is, it's the whole joke with every time somebody coughed or sneezed, they're like, you have COVID. No, it's not. Every cough does not mean you have COVID. So he's had to deal with something his whole life. He's been told how great he is, how great he is, how great he is. Then in the biggest stage, he totally wets the bed and he listens to people all summer say, you know what? He's no good. And that would be a challenging thing to handle. Then he doesn't show up for camp because he's upset the way the Sixers handled it. He's blamed the Sixers like, well, you're late, so you're going to get fined just like any other employee at any other job. You don't show up for work, you're not getting paid. And now they're like, now you're messing with his mental health. I think it's very disingenuous to the people who really have mental health issues.
I said to you, so on the flip side of it is if you are the Philadelphia 76ers now, and I said this to you, I don't even know from a PR standpoint, I don't even know how you respond or how you handle this, because they have come out and said they made sure that he had a psychologist. They've made sure that he's had the opportunity to be with the team if he wants to be. This team has also come out and said they have not received reports from their specialists or Ben Simmons' personal specialist that he is incapable of practicing or playing. And so they fine him. And then they fire back that these fines are deteriorating his mental health.
Right.
Like he's trying to get back to a point. So I don't know if you're the Philadelphia 76ers, how you respond to this. I don't know how mental health is mental health has finally turned a corner in which I believe it is recognized in a manner in which it finally should be. To me, this feels like they are turning the corner and they're turning it and they're going beyond it. And the worst part about it is they didn't really do this until he was getting fined.
Correct. Well, I see this like Portnoy was talking about, and if you haven't followed that, we've talked about the Barstool Sports guy, but he said how his attorney said, don't say anything. Don't respond to this at all. And he's like, I'm not doing that because I have nothing to hide. But the attorneys are looking at it as strategy. So his agent, who is probably an attorney, but his agent is looking at this as strategy. And like, what is our best play here? Because you sitting here getting fined, so we'll throw out the mental health card and maybe it hits or maybe it doesn't. And as I said to you, in the court of public opinion, the court of public opinion that matters here is Philadelphia 76er fans. And I don't think they're buying it. I can't believe they're buying it. Like, all of a sudden now we're going to feel sorry for Ben Simmons, who signed a $157 million contract because them fining him for not showing up for work is deteriorating his mental health. They'll say, especially Philadelphia, what they'll say? Here, we'll help your mental health. Show up for work. That's going to be the fans' response. So I don't think the Sixers are in a bad situation. I think the agent took a desperate shot, and I don't think it's going to hit.
One more quote from him. In this case, we have to get Ben help and not put finances above mental health. As an agent, I understand contractual obligations and I hold myself accountable in this business. But if someone is telling you something, we can no longer turn a blind eye in today's world. This is no longer about a trade. This is about finding a place where we can help Ben get back to his mental strength and get back on the floor.
And you know what? And I agree with everything he said about that. But while Ben is taking a sabbatical to take care of his mental health, and he shouldn't get any money for it because he's not if he came in and said he signed a 7-year, $157 million deal, he is rich beyond his wildest dreams. Ben Simmons is not going to end up homeless. If he comes up to the Sixers and says, listen, I need the year off. Okay. And the Sixers, in the modern day and age, the Sixers should respect that. But Ben Simmons shouldn't show up and say, I need the year off. I'll take my $23 million while I go sit at home and figure stuff out.
Yeah.
So he should get as much unpaid leave as he wants, or they deem that he needs. I don't know what verb I should use there, but sure. I'm good with that. But you're right. This is all tied to money.
Yes,
this is all tied to money. It's not about mental health. It's about money.
That's the biggest issue with all of this, is that if he would not have referred directly to the fines as it deteriorating his mental health, he would have some ground to stand on. But because the thing that is deteriorating his mental health, it's not being away from his teammates, it's not being in the city of Philadelphia, it is fines. Fining him is directly deteriorating his mental health. And that is the aspect of this where that, to me, if that's not your mental health, that is your feelings. Your feelings are hurt because you thought you could get out of Philadelphia. And instead, not only are you not out of Philadelphia, you're also losing your money at the same time. And your feelings are hurt, and it's making you feel cruddy.
It is crappy whenever anyone uses something like the race card when they shouldn't, because it disingenuifies the real race issues that are out there. We do it with gender. We do it with all kinds of things that people try to lump themselves into being the victim when they're not. And it is really, really unfortunate for, like I said, with the people with real mental health issues, that they've kind of hopped on and said, oh yes, that's us too. And I think it just reeks of desperation.
It's going to be interesting
the attorney side,
because the 76ers right now are showing no, like I saw earlier today, they still expect him to play. Like, they're expecting him to show up to practice. They're expecting him to play. I don't think the fines are going to stop. This is the other part of the story that a lot of people don't know about. They put a huge chunk of his contract into escrow. Remember, I told you
said they front loaded it.
They actually released it and gave it to him. And then that same day was the day he got thrown out of practice for not wanting to participate. So it's not like the Sixers are not trying.
Yeah.
Like, they are doing everything. So it's funny how, he had these mental health issues. He gets paid in escrow. Now he doesn't want to practice. So he got his lump sum. All of a sudden he gets thrown out of practice, doesn't want to do these drills. Then they start fining him for the individual games that are upcoming. And now all of a sudden, like, his mental health, and he feels attacked. And it's anytime there is money involved, he immediately shuts down. It's like he feels attacked and he doesn't want to do this. It's a very, very bizarre scenario. I think it's more about his feelings than actual mental health.
You know what else is crazy about it? And who is his significant other?
One of the Jenners.
How much money do they have?
Quite a bit.
So, like, again, in the world of no one's feeling sorry for Ben Simmons over his money. So that's why they turn to this. They're trying to make him a sympathetic figure in a position where he's not a sympathetic figure. And that's what I think. And it was desperate and it was wrong.
All right. Anything else before you have to go?
Yes, I do want to say this. For you people that are bored, theater people, the greatest theatrical production of Clue is going on at Montoursville High School right now. And I say that a little dramatically because my daughter's in it. She plays Miss Peacock. It is. I saw the movie.
Yep.
Whatever, cheese, whatever. It is laugh out loud funny. The kid who plays Wordsworth, who is the butler dude and like the main character, is worth your $5 admission all by himself. Every time I go to a local theater production, whether it's a school show or at the community theater league or something, I'm always shocked at how much talent there is in little podunk central Pennsylvania. And it is, if you've never seen Clue, or if it's better than the movie, it's way funnier than the movie. And it is really, really good. So they're not doing it tonight because they had to schedule it around the high school football game because there's so many of the theatrical kids that are in the band and the cheerleaders, stuff like that. Nice. But it's Saturday night. It is Sunday afternoon at Montoursville. You can just show up. It's a big auditorium, so you don't have to worry about selling out. But yeah, it is Miss Peacock, greatest Miss Peacock you'll ever see.
I believe it.
But it is really good. I went, and I'm actually going back, and I mean my kid's in it, so I would go back anyway. But I am excitedly going back because it is that funny.
Nice, good stuff.
There you go.
All right. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Thank you to our sponsors, and be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all of your local news.
And another big win for Pitt last night. They almost blew it. They rallied in overtime. And if there was any that God was rooting for Pitt, because we were watching in overtime, and Pitt got the ball first, because the team that wins the coin toss in overtime always takes the ball second. Well, Pitt got the ball in a rain, and they scored. And right after they scored, it turned into like a flood. So North Carolina had to score during a monsoon and couldn't do it. And but Pitt is ranked. One of the topics that we'll have as the season comes down is Pitt on the climb, and what does James Franklin's constant rumors of him leaving? It can't help recruiting at all.
Yeah, but their class is locked up.
Who?
Penn State.
But when you're going beyond and beyond,
the class,
if I'm recruiting against Penn State, if I'm talking to a high school, if I'm Pitt and I go and say, listen, you think Franklin's going to be there for 4 more years? Every year there's a rumor. Sooner or later, he's going to take one of these. And whereas I'm staying forever. Now that guy's probably lying too, because if he got a good job offer,
they're all lying.
But there are coaches that give you the belief that they're not going anywhere. And with Franklin, there's a rumor every year. Now he's been there for 8 years. He's never taken one, but that cannot help the recruiting process, the constant rumors that the head coach is leaving.
It hasn't hurt him yet. We're 7-8 years in.
I mean, I guess they still never have a great offensive line.
Hasn't hurt his recruiting.
They're about to go 7-5, so they're. I mean,
okay.
It's one of the factors that comes into play. And again, I don't think Pitt is on the level of Penn State, and I don't think I only wear this because my daughter goes there now. My tuition money makes me a Pitt fan.
The thing, again, we're trying to get off of here. The funniest part about Penn State is that do you want to talk against them or do you want to talk for them? If you want to talk against them, they're 7-5. They don't have a backup quarterback. They don't have a line. You want to talk for them? They were a quarterback injury away. They could have been undefeated going into Ohio State. That game was pretty close. Who knows? He wasn't completely healthy. The Penn State is one way or the other. You just decide how you want to talk about Penn State. You know what I'm like? It doesn't matter who you talk to. They're either for or against in that conversation. And if they're for them, they've got a good point. If you're against them, they've got a good point.
No, but I'm saying, if James Franklin came out and said, this is my dream job, I'm never leaving, I'm staying here until I die.
He did it for 4 years when he got the job.
But he doesn't. He hired a new agent in the middle of the season.
You know who hires new agents? Lots of coaches hire new agents.
Not in the middle of the season. Not in the middle of the season. I disagree with that. My brother had one agent his whole career.
He's not an NCAA football coach.
But why do you need a new agent?
Why does anybody need a new agent?
Because
the Penn State Franklin stuff is so overblown. It's so overblown. It's unbelievable.
Okay, before we go, 90 seconds. Give me one reason. If James Franklin, who has a contract out through 2025, if James Franklin had no desire to go anywhere, why is he hiring a new agent in the middle of the season?
Because he still needs leverage to get the things that he wants.
He has a contract. He already has it.
No. Not for him personally, for the program to actually do the things he wants to do. In order to get everything that they need, everything, because if you ask him, they're still not in that top echelon of facilities, of boosters, all that stuff. And how do you keep people going is you make sure you have leverage. To sit there and be this is my dream job, I'm never leaving, you're not going to get any of the things you want, or in James Franklin mind, you need. It's that simple.
I'll have to absorb that. I do get your point. And I'll have to think that through, because which would help you more, the guy who says, I'm going to be here forever and we're going to do this forever, or the guy who keeps saying, if you're not nice to me, I'm leaving?
But he's not saying that. If you listen to everything he said the last 4 weeks.
He never says it out loud.
If you listen to everything he's saying the last 4 weeks, it is always the same thing. there are certain things that we need to become that type of program. And when he talks about the Ohio States and the Alabamas and those programs, and he'll say, he's like, we're close. Like, we're almost there.
They are close.
But he goes, but we're not quite there yet. And there are things that we need. We need better facilities. We need more money. We need more support. We need more. Because he knows, like, if you go to Alabama, that is the show in town. Like, there is nothing else. There is an infinity check for Alabama football. It never ends. And at Penn State, there is a number. There's a number where that check ends. And James Franklin knows that. And so this leverage has nothing to do with him. It has everything to do with making sure that check gets closer and closer and closer to that level of Alabama or Ohio State. That's all it is.
And you may be right, or he may be looking to go to USC.
I will say this, if he leaves, and I'm a stern believer he will not leave.
I agree with that.
If he leaves, it will be because of his daughter. It will be because there is a university or a facility where he feels like A, he can win, and B, he can get better care for his daughter. That is the number 1B of why he's going to go. And it will have nothing to do with actual Penn State football. Because people are going to be like, people are going to be like, he didn't think he could do it at Penn State. And I'm telling you right now, it's going to have nothing to do with that.
I disagree with that.
Nothing to do with it.
I think if he goes to USC, it'll be because he walks in and he's a conquering hero. And
they already said you're wrong, because they've already said USC has one of the best. I forget what his daughter has, but they've already said USC on campus has one of the best facilities in the country for taking care of his daughter. They've already come out and said that. But so if he goes to USC, I'm telling you, it won't be because USC was ahead of Penn State. It will be because he can have the same thing. And his daughter gets the care.
I'm not saying that the football is ahead of Penn State. I'm saying that he's been 8 years at Penn State, and he is still not Paterno. He is. If he walks into USC,
why would he want to be?
If he walks into USC's campus on June 1st, he is a conquering hero, and they are rolling out the red carpet for him. When he walks onto Penn State's campus on June 1st this year, he is not a conquering hero. They're not rolling out the red carpet for him. He's just the football coach who's been here for a decade. Mm-hmm. It is a different. They will love him more June, July, and August in USC this summer than they would at Penn State.
Good.
And that's so. Anyway.
Okay.
But I go back to I like James Franklin.
I like James Franklin.
I really do.
I think James Franklin is really good at what he does, and that's why he's always involved in this stuff. I think 99%.
Oh, if nobody wanted him, his name wouldn't come up.
Exactly.
Nope, I agree with that too.
He's good at what he does.
But it still goes back.
People throw his name out.
I stand by my original point that it can't be helping recruiting.
I just don't think it's hurting it.
May be right.
I don't think it's crushing it at all. I think it's very minimal, the effect.
It may be minimal, but it can't help. And I'll stick with that.
Can't hurt.
Oh, it can hurt. Oh, it can.
I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina. Have a great